The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Ted Rowlands, filling in for Vinnie Politan. The subject of our investigation is the disappearance of Matthew Johnson. He's a Utah father and husband, and the arrest of his wealthy wife, Jennifer Gledhill. Here's the story.
In suburban Cottonwood Heights, Utah, a family's nightmare unfolded in September of 2024. Military veteran Matthew Johnson disappeared, last seen after reporting to work. His estranged wife, Jennifer, reported him missing days later, many assuming a painful breakdown in the middle of their bitter divorce and custody fight. But the truth was far darker. A confidential informant revealed that Jennifer allegedly confessed to shooting Matthew in his sleep, then disposing of his body in a remote, shallow grave, hidden somewhere north of their home. Her parents, Thomas and Rosalie Gledhill, were also arrested for obstruction of justice after reportedly aiding in crime scene cleanup and buying a replacement mattress to erase evidence. Jennifer, a mother of three, pled not guilty to multiple felony charges, including first-degree murder and obstruction. She remains jailed without bail as detectives scour for Matthew's remains.
Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas here with us in studio. All right, Cody, give us some more here, specifically about the alleged murder plot.
Well, yeah, Ted, now we know prosecutors say Jennifer Gledhill shot and killed her husband, Matthew Johnson, at their home. Now, investigators believe the two got into an argument on September 20th, 2024, after Matthew had come home that night, alleging he had yelled at her because he knew she had been sleeping with another man. Then, after Matthew had fallen asleep in their bed, they say Jennifer shot him in the head with his 9mm handgun. Let's take a listen to the prosecutor, Emily Paulos, explain some of what Jennifer allegedly confessed to regarding the plot and some of the planning that went into it. Now, this sound here is from a bail hearing. Take a listen.
On September 22nd, the defendant confessed to the informant that she shot Matthew in the master bedroom with a gun as he slept in the master bed. She confessed that she smashed Matthew's cell phone and hid his truck in a neighborhood near the house. She also confessed that she loaded Matthew's body into a rooftop storage container, slid him down the stairs, and loaded him into the back of her minivan. She confessed that she took Matthew's body north, dug a hole, and buried him in a shallow grave. And she confessed that she cleaned everything up. The state believes the defendant was very calculating in her crimes. Just days after that temporary protective order was removed, she arranged for the children to stay at her parents' during the evening that Matthew was killed. And she asked her parents to keep the children home at their house for another day, presumably while she was cleaning up the crime and disposing of Matthew's body. The evidence is significant that the defendant obstructed the investigation by removing the mattress and replacing it days later with a new mattress. The cargo box that had been observed by witnesses at the home on prior occasion was disposed of and then later located. The mattress pillows and the mattress pad were also disposed of and then later recovered.
Now, Ted, Jennifer is saying that she is innocent, of course, and in that hearing, her defense attorney, Jeremy Diaz, wanted to make a point about the argument the two had shortly before Matthew's disappearance. Take a listen to this.
The state brought up video of an argument that was had, but that's all it is video of an argument. And if we're bringing up the argument, I have had the opportunity to look at those. And there are moments where Matthew is incredibly aggressive with my client.
Now, of course, prosecutors say Jennifer said that Matthew had told her he was going to be gone for a week and she shouldn't call him. But an officer noted that Jennifer seemed distracted and at times nervous while she was telling him that, Ted.
Okay, Cody, a lot there. That gets us to our first question in our investigation, and that is, What does the alleged murder plot reveal? Well, let's bring in the experts to help us answer that question. In Utah, criminal defense attorney Sky Lazaro and missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher. He's also a search and rescue pilot and ground search technician. Sky, overall thoughts on this one? Boy, it seems like a mountain of evidence against this woman.
It is, but most of this evidence really is in the form of text messages to someone with her alleged confession. When we look at actual forensic evidence, there was some blood recovered from the home, but in terms of a body or was she actually the one who disposed of it? Did he die of a gunshot wound? Things like that. I think there's questions to be answered or that need to be answered there.
And Steve, to that point, this is a large individual, and she is a much smaller. Dealing with someone, can adrenaline give people what they need to pull off what she is alleged to have pulled off, and that is get his body into that carrying case, put it in a minivan, dump it, et cetera, mattress? There's a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot, and yeah, the adrenaline certainly, is a factor, but she also, had some time. She had arranged for the kids to be away and everything, and it is, but it is still shocking that she was able to, even when she got this container down the stairs, which she probably slid it down, to get it on the vehicle. It's quite a feat, Do
you think, Steve, that maybe someone helped her? Her parents have been charged with helping her get a new mattress and with cleanup. Do you think there's another individual possibly that helped her? If indeed she was part of it.
It very well could be. There's the calls to her father. Well, we know the parents have been charged, obviously. But, the father in particular, there were some phone calls to at some really, critical times. And so, yeah, I think there could have been. I would not be surprised. And I definitely think that the father could also hold a key to where the body is because of the, timing of the phone calls.
Sky, they have some money. This couple had money. They're getting a divorce. She's already, I guess, moved on. She's got another lover. The motive here seems a bit odd. Why kill him? But I guess, love and war. What are your overall thoughts on why this woman would shoot him in his sleep?
Well, you don't have to prove motive in Utah to prove a homicide. Juries love to hear about motive or why it happened, but it's not necessary. It's not an element of the crime. So in this case, whether or not they got in a fight, there had been multiple protective orders applied for. One actually that found that she was the problematic party, so the protective order wasn't entered. But these couple had a little bit of a tumultuous history. She's kind of in this position of either maintaining I didn't do it and I'm innocent and you can't prove that I'm the one who killed him, or he was an abusive husband and therefore that's why I did it and it was in self-defense.
And which one is a harder defense?
This case is weird. I've covered this case and followed it since it was filed, and they had looked extensively for his body, following all the GPS coordinates, and still have never recovered it. Really, this case, I think, evidence-wise, to a jury, turns on those text messages and recordings that she had with this alleged person she was having an affair with.
Steve, are you surprised they haven't found the body?
Somewhat with the GPS data, although she seems like a very calculated person. And I think that, listen, she turned that phone off, so she knew it was going to come down to them tracking that. So I would not be surprised if she drove out there and then backtracked quite a ways, because people are going to think, well, shut the phone off and she keeps going, and north. But I wouldn't be surprised if she actually backtracked to throw people off and found some spot along the way. And I also think that's where the father could come in, because somebody knows. I don't think she was driving blindly. I think this is a spot that somebody had thought through. But I also think she was playing games with the GPS data, knowing that she was being tracked.
Do you think, on that level, Sky, then why the potential confession? I guess she maybe thought, well, this is my lover, he'll understand-ish and still love me, or, I mean, to your point, you remove that. This is a tough case.
Exactly, and I think it's a really hard case without that. I don't even know if you can prove that he's deceased at this point without those admissions. Who knows why people say the things they do? I always think my cases are great until I get something that my client said on a jail phone call or to somebody else. Maybe she thought, he loves me, I can trust him, it'll be okay, now I can be with him. It's who knows what was going on in her head when she, allegedly sent those text messages or made those calls.
Yeah, and Steve, to that point, the best way to a lot of times find people is from other people, correct?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so, whether she's disclosed something to somebody or she put him in an area, where there will be other, people, and we're coming in the hunting season, often bodies that are disposed of are found, that way. But I also noticed, the tote that she put him in, was in the water. So I don't think they can rule that out either. But the search area is wide in this thing because of 2.5 hours of the phone being off, you can cover a lot of ground, even backing out the time if she really did dig a shallow grave. 45 minutes to an hour, you got an hour and a half of, it's pretty big geofence.
Yeah. And Utah's a beautiful country, but also very spacious, and you could find somewhere to possibly hide somebody. Sky and Steve are going to stay with us. Coming up next, what do we know about Jennifer Gledhill's affair?
I always preached that I was like the Queen of Hearts in my past lives because I'm like off with their heads.
The Court TV podcast will return.
I wanted to remind the court that there was a letter filed a long time ago from Matthew Johnson's family. I just want to briefly reference that letter. If she can brutally murder her husband with no remorse, she's clearly capable of harming her children. She's uncooperative in helping law enforcement locating the children's father's body.
That was Prosecutor Emily Paulos. That letter was from Matthew Johnson's family. It seems to tell everybody where they stand, that Jennifer Gledhill killed Matthew and hid his body. Now prosecutors say they have a lot of information from a man Jennifer was having an affair with. According to that man, Jennifer confessed to nearly every aspect of the crime. She said she shot Matthew while he was asleep. She then cleaned up and drove off with his body. Prosecutors say that Jennifer said all of this in a phone call, and the man recorded it. We don't have that recording, but the state gave us details of that call, including some shocking comments Jennifer allegedly made while telling her lover exactly what she allegedly did.
I now want to talk about the evidence that was provided by the identified informant. On September 22nd, the defendant confessed to the informant that she shot Matthew in the master bedroom with a gun as he slept in the master bed. Right before the defendant reported Matthew missing, the informant recorded a phone call with the defendant. And rather than playing it here, I just want to summarize some points and what is recorded on that recording. In the phone call, the defendant apologizes for telling the informant about what happened. She tells him to not think of her as a monster and to remember her who she was before she opened her mouth. And the informant tells the defendant that he was frightened by what she had told him. And then the informant, and I quote, says to her, hypothetically, if the roles were reversed and I did something to someone and I told you that I carried it out, like, you would be shocked and scared, wouldn't you? And the defendant responds, quoting, well, not if I deserved it. I always preached that I was like the Queen of Hearts in my past lives because I'm like off with their heads. I'm like, if we could just round up the scum of this earth and put them on an island or just kill them all, I could shipshape this country back into a good place. Now then, even in that phone call, she starts claiming that this is just a hypothetical situation. However, she tells, and I quote the informant, "I think that the fact that you got scared of me, that part, it broke my heart, because I was like, wow, if you think I could even hurt a fly, like he's not a person. He wasn't a person anymore. He wasn't Matt anymore." And what's key from that recording is at this point, Matt hadn't been reported missing. Yet the defendant was referring to him in the past tense. The defendant told the informant that she would kill herself before spending her life in prison, or that she would flee the state with her children.
Okay, wow. That's a lot. It gets us to our next question in our investigation, and that is, what do we know about Jennifer Gledhill's affair? Let's bring in the experts to help us with this investigation. Nationally known psychotherapist and author, Dr. Robynn Ludwig. She's also the host of the podcast and YouTube series, The Pivot with Dr. Robynn Ludwig. And still with us, missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher, also a search and rescue pilot and ground search technician. All right, Robbie, good to see you. Well, I'll tell you what we know about this affair is that guy was like, I can't believe I was dating this woman. Wow, a lot to unpack in that recorded conversation that allegedly she had with him. What stands out?
Well, I think what stands out is that Jennifer, part of her really enjoys her murderous rage. She enjoys being vindictive and being the judge and jury in her life. And I wonder, I think if we look at it diagnostically, she would have borderline personality disorder, which tends to see people in terms of all good or all bad. And antisocial personality disorder, she's able to do whatever she wants because she determines it's okay. And this was a test. She was testing the person she was having an affair with to see if he could love her aggressive side, if he could love her even though she was murderous. And what she discovered is, no, he could not. That this was a deal breaker. And I think that this is something Jennifer really didn't know about her lover until she engaged in this type of dialogue with him.
Yeah, but Dr. Ludwig, that's a 1 in a million that she would actually have a guy that she's been dating say, oh, honey, good job. Right? Or no? Or how many people are there?
I want to write a novel about you. You're so inspiring.
Right,
Every woman
yeah.
should be like you.
You should run for
but
office.
I think with people who... Exactly. But I think with people like Jennifer, their reality testing is not so great. So sometimes they merge fantasy or what they think should happen with what is happening. So perhaps her fantasy about her lover was that he would love her unconditionally. And that's what she thought she was missing in her life. And her husband, who was all bad, he was so bad, he wasn't even a person anymore. So whatever happened to him was okay because he wasn't a person. So I think Jennifer is somebody who makes up her own rules as she goes. She has a fantasy of how to make her life perfect or better, and it just doesn't seem to work out for her. And I think we're discovering this right now.
Steve, what stood out to you listening to that?
Well, in the probable cause statement, she makes, or he claims that she said she was kind of shocked that she felt he was the kind of guy that would say, let me get my shovel, to help you. And it's just wild. Thankfully, this was the kind of guy that, because she was trying to delete messages as she was writing them, and thankfully he was screenshotting them. But it's just shocking that, I don't know how long she had this affair partner, but to think that you could lay a bomb like that on somebody and they would just be okay with it and go to the grave with it. In fact, I think she said something about, she assumed that, he would type of person that would take that secret to the grave. It's a different type of mindset.
Yeah, and Robbie, if this goes to trial, as we expect it will, and he takes the stand, as we expect he will, I'm talking about the lover, boy, what evidence, because the jury's going to be scared all of a sudden from her once he regurgitates these communications, right?
Well, it sounds like her lover did get scared. Like, oh my God, who am I dealing with? And very wisely realized if this woman is able to kill her husband while he's sleeping, right? He was completely defenseless. Then what is she capable of doing to him? And so he wisely went to the state with this information. And so, you know, we're hearing just how dangerous this woman is and how this man probably thought she was exciting and sexual and sensuous. And then he's layering, you know, he's hearing this information about her vengeful plans. It is disturbing. And so he was right to realize that at the time and not shake it off and be in denial himself.
Yeah. Could you imagine? Yeah. If he'd have grabbed his shovel and helped, talk about sleeping with one eye open for the rest of his time with her.
Yes. Queen of Hearts. Off with her head.
Scary. Dr. Ludwig, Robbie, thank you so much for joining us. He's going to stick around. Still to come. How strong is the evidence against Jennifer Gledhill?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
I'm Ted Rowlands, filling in for Vinnie Politan as we continue our investigation into the disappearance of Matthew Johnson and the arrest of his estranged wife and her parents for his murder and cover-up. Here's the story.
42-year-old Jennifer Gledhill presented herself as a successful Utah mother of 3 until she allegedly transformed into something far darker. In late September 2025, after a contentious divorce and custody fight, she texted her father demanding $13,000 by Friday, just days before her husband, National Guard veteran Matthew Johnson, vanished from their home. A confidential informant, who was Jennifer's lover, later claimed that Gledhill allegedly confessed to shooting Matthew in his sleep, dismembering his body, stuffing him into a storage container, and burying him in a shallow grave, describing the act as cold and mission-like. Court documents reveal investigators found bleach-soaked master bedroom walls, fresh blood stains, and a newly purchased mattress, all pointing to a staged crime scene. Gledhill's parents were arrested for allegedly helping to clean up the scene and cover up the killing. Gledhill pled not guilty to 9 felonies, including first-degree murder. Matthew's family is still searching for answers since his body has never been found. This suburban tragedy is now a case of suspicion, betrayal, and unbearable loss.
Let's check back in with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, what do we know about the evidence in this case? There's a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot, Ted, and we know a fair amount about it all from a bail hearing in this case. Prosecutor Emily Paulos gave us a description of a lot of it. Now, here she is breaking it down and explaining what investigators say Jennifer did after she killed Matthew. Take a listen.
In this case, there is substantial evidence. There's substantial evidence that supports that Matthew Johnson is not missing. Matthew Johnson was murdered by the defendant. On the early morning of September 21st, her phone data tracks her on that blue line all the way down to the bottom red dot, and where on September 30th, Matthew's truck was recovered. During a search of the defendant's and Matthew's residence, the police observed the following: a new mattress on the master bed, a smell of bleach in the house, fresh wipe marks from the cleaning on the wall behind the master bed, and blood found in the carpet underneath the master bed and on the slats of the master bed. Now, the location of that blood stain is consistent where Matthew would sleep, put his head on the mattress. And that's consistent from the videos that the state has, that the evidence in this case of them arguing in their bedroom that night. Now, going to State's Exhibit 4, Now that is Blue Star imaging that confirmed that it's positive for human blood. And in addition, DNA analysis has confirmed that that is Matthew's blood. And State's Exhibit 5 is also Blue Star imaging confirming that it's human blood on the slats of the master bed. Now that GPS phone data, that tracking map that we showed on the previous exhibit, put the defendant at a specific location. A location that, upon further investigation, it turns out the defendant discarded even more evidence. Law enforcement located the master bed foam mattress and pillows which were wrapped up in a rug from the residence. If you go to 13. Now 13 is that same rug, and that is the mattress pad and pillows, we believe, from the defendant's residence. If you could go to 14. Now 14 is in fact a screenshot from a body camera a month prior to the murder, and that is of the master bedroom. And you can see it looks just like the same foam mattress. And then State's Exhibit 15, that is the rug that was wrapped around the foam mattress and the pillows unobscured. And we go to 16. 16 is a screenshot from the defendant's phone taken from 2023. That is the same rug, and that is Matthew Johnson next to the same rug. Law enforcement did in fact locate that rooftop storage container with the assistance of the military in Davis County. It was located after a storm, and we believe it floated from where it was concealed by the defendant. If you go to State's Exhibit 8. State's Exhibit 8 is that same storage container. You can see that it was duct taped, but I want to note the specific design and the logo from that container. If we could go to 9. This is a screenshot recovered from the defendant's phone. And if we go to State's Exhibit 10, this is zoomed up close. You can see it's the same design, it's the same logo. We go to 11. This is Blue Star imaging from blood found, human blood found in that storage container. DNA analysis has determined that it's Matthew's blood.
So a whole lot there, Ted, but Jennifer's defense attorney, Jeremy Diaz, points out some of what the state lacks in its evidence, and he makes an argument about that storage container.
Biggest factors that cut against the state's requirement of substantial evidence are the lack of a body and lack of a murder weapon. Mr. Johnson is a highly trained Special Forces officer with several tours of combat under his belt and is equipped with abilities your standard citizen simply does not have. These abilities and experiences give multiple explanations and possibilities that have nothing to do with Ms. Gledhill as it relates to his disappearance. Further, Your Honor, the lack of confirming evidence, I would argue the lack of confirming evidence on items allegedly disposed of by Ms. Gledhill is another cut against the state's requirement of substantial evidence. The state claims to have found a travel container Ms. Gledhill allegedly used to dispose of the body, and that container contained, and going back to, the court had an opportunity to see what that container looked like. The possibility of Ms. Gledhill being able to fit a full-grown man inside that container, to me, seems difficult and limited. And I do think it cuts against their argument of substantial evidence.
So, Ted, the evidence we do have: GPS data from Gledhill's phone, a corroborating story from Gledhill's alleged lover, blood evidence in the house where it all happened. Also important to note, regardless of the defense's theory, Gledhill still faces 9 felony charges, including first-degree murder and felony witness tampering.
A lot there. That gets us to our next question in our investigation. How strong is the evidence against Jennifer Gledhill? I can answer that. Very. But let's bring in the experts. Sky Lazaro still with us, criminal defense attorney, joining us, former detective with more than 20 years working homicides and high-profile cases, Phil Waters. Phil, good to see you. This one, on the outside, you know, to the layperson, it's a ton of evidence against this defendant. Your thoughts? What can you add?
Well, it's good to see you again, Ted. It's been a while. Mm-hmm. Well, from the detective viewpoint, you wish every homicide scene that I made would have had this kind of evidence. This is a treasure trove. You got so many affirmative links here, and what it tells me is that this, even though it's a catastrophe in the terms of the way it ended, she thought about this stuff. I'm surprised this attorney is trying to go for some sort of a defense to explain this cacophony of evidence. So I think he needs to look at mitigation rather than trying to defend her. But the evidence is one of those cases where it is overwhelming. They've got physical evidence, they've got forensic evidence, they've got cell phone data. I mean, and then they've got an informant here that's been providing them the details behind it all. So they've got a lot of mountain of evidence here to overcome.
Sky, you know this case very well, and you say that the big problem for the defense is this informant, the ex-lover. He recorded the conversation. It's not as though he's going to police and saying, "Oh, she said this." He has her voice. How do you get around that?
I think this is always the most compelling evidence to a jury, and that's the defendant's own words, and that is the hardest thing to get past. How do you explain why my client, because if she had just said it, it's probably hearsay, right? But it's recorded, it's her words, it's her text messages, those types of things. I don't know how you explain to a jury why someone would make those types of admissions for any other reason than that they did it.
Yeah, and the statement of, "I believe I was the Queen of Hearts in a previous life," off with their head. I mean, it's chilling. Phil, on the other hand, how does she lug him around? He's a big guy, and getting him into that container A and then getting the mattress. I mean, if you've ever helped anybody move, you know that mattresses are a pain. And if you're all by yourself, goodness, that's a lot.
Well, that's true. And there's an indication here that her parents, assisted her in some way. So whether that was a cleanup or disposing of different parts of the evidence and the body and so forth, I guess that's yet to be seen. But I tell you, people can, in these types of situations, it's amazing how strong they can get when they have got a purpose ahead of them, where they have got to do something like dispose of a body. And so she had it planned out. I mean, what I read is that she put the body into this rooftop container, and then let it slide down the steps to get the body to the bottom of the steps, and then she gets it out of there and does so forth and so on. So, but it would tend to lend that there was somebody assisting her.
And that, Sky, may help her at trial just because of a juror might be hung up on that. I don't believe she could have done it alone, and he was special forces. Maybe he was into some other weird world that no one knows about.
That's correct. The other thing is there's really a lack of evidence to support that his body was in there in some ways. I mean, sure, maybe she disposed of it, but you would expect there to be, and maybe this comes out in trial, and
but there was blood.
Public. True, there was blood, but if it's theirs, I mean, in most cases, here's what I would say about this case. Had she not made those admissions, this case, I think, is defensible. You can argue about why his blood might be in his home, why his blood might be in this container that they used. Maybe he cut himself. The problem with this case is when you take all of this other evidence, even without a body and without a cause of death, and you pair it with her admission to this other individual and her words, I think this case gets really difficult.
Absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see how this progresses in terms of a defense, if indeed it does go to trial. Thank you, as always, Sky Lazaro, for joining us. Phil's going to stick around. Coming up next, where is he? Where's Matthew Johnson? Talk about that.
His military ID and his passport were found in the master bedroom, and the last person to see him alive was the defendant.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
if you ever needed an answer to something, he was the first guy to turn to. He's always the smartest guy in the room. He was funny. I mean, the amount of times that guy has made me laugh, belly laugh, like it's unreal. And we're all losing sleep. We're all, we need closure. We need to know where his body's at. We're not the type of people that would leave a friend behind.
Talk about Matthew Johnson, his body's still missing. Cody Thomas, what do we know about the search for Matthew Johnson?
Well, Ted, we got some insight into that from the state, of course. Prosecutor Emily Paulos explained some of what investigators learned from Jennifer Gledhill's cell phone and how they were able to track her movements. Take a listen.
Matthew has not been seen or heard from since September 20th of 2024. He's not been to work. His family and his friends have not seen him. There's no phone records or bank records, no activity. His military ID and his passport were found in the master bedroom. And the last person to see him alive was the defendant. The mattress is still missing. The gun is still missing. The very gun that we have video of her handling, and the same gun she showed the informant just days before the murder. The search for Matthew Johnson's body is ongoing, and his family just wants to bring Matthew home. She also confessed that she loaded Matthew's body into a rooftop storage container, slid him down the stairs, and loaded him into the back of her minivan. She confessed that she took Matthew's body north, dug a hole, and buried him in a shallow grave. And she confessed that she cleaned everything up. Much of the information that was provided to law enforcement by the informant has been verified by actual tangible evidence. This is the mapping of the defendant's phone on September 22nd. It shows her traveling up north. It also, during that time, she also turned her phone off for 2.5 hours. There's also videos that confirm that videos at different locations that confirm she's up north during this time.
Now, we know investigators found a bunch of evidence along that route. Many of the items they think came from the couple's home. But again, they have not found Matthew, Ted.
That brings us to our last question in the investigation. Where is Matthew Johnson? Let's bring back Phil Waters and bring into the conversation Steve Fisher as well. He's back with us. All right, Phil, no body, not a problem a lot of times for prosecutions, and it seems like this prosecution team has enough to move forward without a body.
Oh, I'd agree. I've worked no body cases. In fact, I just finished up on the last one that I had in my career just a few months ago. Got a conviction. So this type of a case, it is difficult if you don't have this kind of evidence. So there is no other explanation that Matthew is not gone off the grid somewhere because he's a special forces guy. He is, it's clear by the evidence, and I let evidence lead me where I need to be. And the evidence here is just overwhelming that he is dead. She knows where she put him. Looking at that area on that map, it's a vast area, so there's absolutely no telling where he might be. We don't know how deep the hole was. The animals may have gotten to him and scattered him about. So the only person that knows is the Ice Queen sitting there in that courtroom.
Yeah, the Queen of Hearts. Or maybe her parents. They, of course, also charged for helping to conceal with the purchase of the mattress. Steve, this is your business. How do you go about finding a needle in the haystack?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And I got to say, I read there's 100 of his fellow servicemen that have been involved in the search, and that's really inspiring. The container, the tote, I don't understand why she didn't just go ahead and bury that and make it a little deeper hole. So that, and I realized that during a storm, they think it moved in that body of water. So I would try to, through tracking currents and stuff, trying to figure out where that tote originated from. And that kind of becomes your probably her place last seen. You know, you can assume he was in it there. And from there, that's kind of, you know, the most important thing in search and rescue is that place last seen. From there, I think he's going to be relatively close to where that toad started. He may very well be in the water, and the biology of that is, you know, not great, just because, you know, when a body, when you sinks, especially when it's already a dead body, it's not going to resurface, and it's also going to, be, taken apart. So you'd be looking for bones at that point. You'd have to have dive teams in there. But when she says that she dug a shallow grave, I'm not so sure I believe that. If she did that, I think she would have left him in that toad. I wonder if she opened that toad and dumped him in the water, and then the toad kind of went in the water as well.
Phil, that's a problem, isn't it, with confession-y things when she's talking to her ex-lover? You can't take all of it as gospel, can you? Because this is a person that's unhinged, allegedly.
Well, no, and there's enough admissions in there, of course, to, I think, bring about a verdict that everybody is seeking. But, right, so she may be filling him with a bunch of crap, giving him enough information, and it may be part of her way of trying to distract everybody and deflect where she actually put the body. I agree with Steve. I think that the possibility of him being in the water somewhere is pretty great. And I work with our EquiSearch people on my no-body cases, and they're great folks, and they know how to do that stuff. And they grid those places off where they're most likely to be a finding, and I'm sure that's what's going on here. And I give a lot of credit to those guys that get out there and do these searches, because it's really a tasking operation when you get out there, and you got the elements against you and everything else. And so, if he's in the water, I mean, as has already been talked about, the possibility are they're telling where he is and how many places he may be.
Yeah. Final word, Steve. Yes or no? Do you think they'll find his body before they go to trial? Because they'll keep looking.
Yeah, I actually think they will. He's got 100 of his fellow servicemen in there, and you get groups like EquiSearch, like Phil mentioned, and I think you got a good chance finding him with side sonar.
Yeah. All right. Well, gentlemen, Phil, congratulations on the retirement. Steve, thank you as always for your expertise. Appreciated here. This case is something else. This defendant, something else. The information that we have is off the charts on some level, but you never know. It hasn't gone to trial yet. We're still a long ways from that. And during that period of time, they'll keep looking for Matt Johnson's body. And we'll keep digging for more answers. There'll be more hearings. There'll be much more to this case, and we'll be digging for answers as the investigation continues.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.